So you can ask yourself, what's the whole purpose of all this technology that surrounds us? What is the core purpose of computers in general? The one thing that I would probably say is right now storage. I mean, there's more storage about who we are as people, our customer buying habits than ever before. Also, when it comes to querying data, so data mining and checking to see, for example, what the patterns of buying behavior is. I'm going to say entities like Amazon and Facebook and all the marketplaces we see out there, so they can make better decisions. So now we're going to talk about how control flows use the if-then decision making to actually make sound decisions. First, we're going to start off with something very simple. We're going to take the integer value of my input here, and I'm just going to select 45, and we will say if num modulo 2 is equal to 0, and again, this is an idle, it's just going to print this is even. And then from there, we'll say else, and we'll say this is odd. And it actually says this is odd. Now, if I do the same thing with, let's say, the number 8, we're going to do the same thing, except I chose the number 8, and it says this is even. So this is the more scalable version of the same procedure or function we did before, except this is within a .py file. So, and this is within the function, and we defined it as even odd, and there are no parameters. Now we have everything that a good function should have. We have the docstring right here, user inputs number, and then the modulo is used to determine even or odd, and we have the my number is equal to the integer of the input enter number, and we have the formatting symbol right there, the front slash or backward slash, however way you want to say it, and that's for new line. And then we have if the number modulo 2 equals 0 equals 0. In other words, if the modulus or if the number divided by 2, if the remainder is 0, then it must be even, else it's odd. And like any good procedure or function, it has a return statement. Now, the reason why I have print even odd is because when we print it, it will actually say thank you for playing even odds. It'll print the return value, because as I said, when you utilize a return statement, it actually gives the function a value. And then I ask it to print the even odd docstring right here. So let's go ahead and run it. Enter number, we'll just say 8, and it says even Steven, thank you for playing even odds. That's the return statement. And if you stream it, I also want to point to your attention that it says user inputs number. This is the docstring. We're able to print the docstring right here. Print even odd dot, and then the docstring right there. That, of course, is what we call the dunder function, which the specialized doc function is able to print the docstring up here, so we can keep track of what actually the function does. So in that simple example where you had n modulo 2, that was kind of like a decision or a conditional by which the result of that conditional controlled which path the program took. So if the n modulo 2 resulted in no leftovers or no remainder, then we know it's even, so it printed it's even, or it's even Steven, else it was odd. But what if there was more than one conditional? So this is where the term else if or elif comes into play. So here's a quick example. All right, let's take a look at it. We have a function TC or tip calculator, and the name of this file is actually, I believe I just called it tip calc or whatever, but the function is TC with no parameters. Here is our docstring. This calculates a tip, introduces the concept of elif. So the service input statement is what is the integer value of the service. And then I have rate 1 through 10, new line, 1 being worse and 10 being the best. new line, and then type here. So if service was anything between and including 1 and 5, then we say tip 10%. And if it is between 6 and 8, then tip 20%. And I actually, in the comments, I actually give illustrations or examples of when service is really bad, say between 1 and 5. For example, no refills of water or iced tea, and the order was wrong. Here we have no refills, but the order was correct. So that's a little bit higher. That's when we give 6, 7, or 8. And then finally, everything was great, multiple refills, and tip is 25, or we can go 30%, I suppose. And then we have the return value of I hope you ate well. So at the end of this, we can actually call the function, and we then print the docstring right here. So let's leave this and let's run it. Okay, how was the service? Rate 1 through 10. Remember, that's the new line character. It gives us the new line, and then 10 is worse and 8 is the best. Type here. So let's say we just said 9, and it says tip 25%. And of course, because we printed, if we actually stream the tip program, we can see that it actually asks us to print the doc string. Now you notice nowhere does it say I hope you ate well, because we simply asked the function to run. In order for us to show the return value, which is I hope you ate well, we'd actually have to print the TC function, and we can do that now. And let's do print, and we have to encapsulate print in parentheses. I know it's kind of weird, there's 2 parentheses here, but remember, we have the call to the function with an empty set of parentheses, then we have the print statement with additional sets of parentheses. And let's go ahead and run it. Let's say it was a bad day for the restaurant and it's a 4. In this case, we only tip 10%. And here is I hope you ate well. And the docstring, this calculates a tip and introduces the elif. Now, what exactly is the deal with the term elif? Why couldn't you say if service was at a low level, and then in the next condition you said if service was at a higher level, and then else service was excellent? Why do you have to have elif as opposed to 2 ifs in a row representing the 2 conditionals? Well, some would say that when you have if and then elif, the Python engine reads the original if conditional, and then it proceeds downward to that second conditional, and then it goes to the else, or at least however many elifs there are involved. You can have multiple elifs as long as you only have 1 if and then 1 else at the bottom. The difference is if you had if and then another if and then another if, it would keep going back to the original. So elif is kind of like, for processing purposes, a little bit of a shortcut. And for those of you that are familiar with C++ and Java and C, you probably remember at least this tip calculator thing probably resembles the switch operator. In Python, yes, there is a switch operator, but it just isn't very popular. In like commercial and enterprise environments, you're pretty much going to see the if and then elif and then else.